What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J.Monster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I have something a little bit different for you. This is actually an RP scenario that was designed for the ongoing Age Reforged RP campaign that is taking place on the official Discord. If you guys are interested in following along with that, or even in joining it, I will put a link for you guys down in the description. And of course, I'm going to be coming out with some turn recap videos in the future as well. I believe they're only on like turn 3 right now, so they're not very far into it, and none of the factions have been destroyed, so there's not a ton of huge news, but that also means that there's opportunities for you to join with basically whatever faction you want to. Except I think maybe Isengard is in a lot of trouble right now, so maybe steer clear of them if you want to continue playing in the long term, but you can also play as a mercenary and play for basically anybody that you want. So there's a lot of options for you, so I definitely recommend that you go and check it out. But in any case, there are a couple of rules for this battle. One, there is a timer. And if the timer runs out, the player in the center, which you can see over here, which is actually the bandits, who represent... Bandits are basically any settlement that has not been taken is being occupied by bandits. And the conquering of these settlements is just the representation of law and order being brought to the various wilder regions of Middle-earth. But in any case, the bandits will win if they are not defeated within the time limit, or if they defeat all armies on the field, which they have a good chance of doing, because that brings us to the second rule. First, the 3 players, you can see them surrounding that centerpiece there. It's myself, I believe, Mordor, and Dale. We all have 10k, and none of us are allied. So this is a free-for-all battle, but we're going to have to work together in order to defeat the bandits, who have a whopping 15k, and of course they're playing as Eriador, which means that they're going to have a lot of units. Eriador is very cost-efficient, and largely built, in my opinion, around finding a combination of units that work and leveraging that for everything that you can get from it. And so he's going to have a lot of money, which means more combinations, which means more potential for some really strong formations on the part of the bandits. But in any case, let's take a look at the army compositions, then we can get right into the battle itself. The first army we're looking at today is the Gondor army being commanded by yours truly. And I've brought 3 units of Gondor infantry and a couple units of Sarnak nobles to form my main line. The Gondor infantry are quite cheap and quite expendable, but they are able to deal a reasonable amount of damage in melee, and of course they've got pretty good armor as well. So supporting them with a more elite, more expensive unit like the Sarnak nobles is a really good idea to get the most bang for your buck. Collectively, 1 unit of Sarnak nobles and 1 unit of Gondor infantry represents like a 1,500 florin investment. So you want to get that combination working as well as possible for you, and obviously you want to try and defend them as well from cavalry charges and things like that, because both of these units are very vulnerable to cavalry. So with that in mind, I brought 2 units of Citadel Guard to defend my flanks, 1 here, 1 on the right. These guys are multiple HP. I believe they have about 2, and I think they have 2. Yeah, it's the bodyguard that has 3, but these guys have 2. And really good attack and defense stats, so they're great for defending my main line, or for using in tandem with my cavalry, for example. I've got 1 unit of General's Bodyguard and 1 unit of Gondor Knights. Gondor's cavalry does have a hidden kind of, what would you call it, like a malice or like a debuff against other cavalry units, so they need to be supported. They're pretty good against infantry and things like that, but against cavalry they're going to need some help. So of course my Citadel Guard are going to be useful in that regard as well. Finally, we have the best of the best. My 3rd line of infantry consists of 2 units of veterans of Osgiliath, who are astounding infantrymen once they've used their ammunition. They are not AP missiles, but these guys are tanks. They've got shield value, which means that they are basically unbeatable in a skirmish fight by anything that doesn't have AP missiles, and they've got a lot of attack as well, and some pretty decent missile damage. I think they have like 10 missile damage, or like 9 or 10 or something like that. Like, it's approaching elven levels of damage. In the center here, I've got 1 unit of Wardens of Minas Ithil, which is a new unit in 0.9. I don't know if the model is new. I think the model might be from DSC, like the Master Rangers of Ithilien or something like that. But these guys are AP missiles, one of the few units in the game that still have that trait, that is not a crossbow or a javelin and things like that, which means that they are great for sniping out important targets. They're low number, but they can hide anywhere, so you can use them very effectively in ambush armies, or just generally for ambushes. And yeah, they will definitely pay for themselves many times over if you use them well. But I think that's it for my army. Yes, it definitely is. So let's move on. Let's take a look at what the other 2 players are bringing. The next army we're going to take a look at today is the forces of Mordor, being commanded by Archangel. Now, it has to be said that Archangel and I did have an agreement going into this battle, because this event was known about many days in advance. In fact, I think it actually got delayed a few times, so there's even more time for backdoor kind of wheeling and dealing and things like that. So the plan between the Mordor player and I is that we're going to split the money if we win. So he's going to go in first, and he's actually built his army around being very, very rush oriented. So he's got 4 units of Mordor Moranon Uruks, which I'm gonna trip over this so many times throughout the video, so prepare yourselves. But these guys are a solid heavy infantry pick, the best that Mordor has to offer without getting into like the territory of elites and things like that. So they're a good mainland infantry. I definitely recommend supporting them, possibly even with the Mordor Moranon Halberd unit. But yeah, they only cost about 600 to bring, and they're actually better than the regular run-of-the-mill Uruks. He's also got 4 units of Moranon Heavy Maulers, who all you have to do is look at those axes and know exactly what these guys are about. They are AP shock troops with a nice charge bonus. They don't cost a lot. They don't have the greatest armor, but they are a little bit better armored, I think, than orc units generally tend to be. But still, very vulnerable to missiles, very expendable with high numbers and high damage. So they can do a lot of work if they're well supported and you don't get them, of course, shot down by arrows or run over by cavalry. Over here in the back, we have the Elite Corps from Archangel, that being the biggest and most important unit of which being a unit of Balrogs. And I know that this unit, I remember when people first found out about the existence of the unit, they were extremely triggered about how lore unfriendly having a unit of Balrogs is. But let me tell you why this unit doesn't bother me. There is precedent. In previous iterations of Tolkien's work in the First Age, there was actually quite a lot of Balrogs. There was not the 7 that they kind of later become, or that they later became. And I think the reason for kind of dialing back on the numbers but upping the power was to make certain events like Glorfindel killing a Balrog to defend survivors from Gondolin, or Ecthelion killing Gothmog during the battle in the King's Court in front of the fountain at Gondolin as well. Just to make those a little bit more epic and fantastic, and just to make them more of an accomplishment. So it's not completely unheard of to see Balrogs getting killed by lesser beings. Like the Edain, definitely in that iteration of Tolkien's work, would have had to have come up against Balrogs, and they would have had to have killed them. So it's not completely absurd. So yeah, don't get too pissed off about it. Over here we have unit of Uruk archers, basically self-explanatory. Not a whole lot to say there. We've got some Temple Guard, who are multiple HP. I think they have like 2 HP. A lot of really nice missile damage. I think they are AP missiles as well. But they don't have a ton of ammunition. They have less ammunition than the Numenorian Shadow Guard. So it's kind of a trade-off. You get AP, but less ammunition, but you also end up with a much stronger unit in melee after the fact than you would with the Shadow Guard. So it's really all down to what you want. Over here we have a unit of Temple Inquisitors whose textures are all screwed up, and they kind of look like White Walkers. Like this guy looks like the Night King. Come on, let's be honest. But the Temple Inquisitors are like, I think they're 3 HP, and they've got something like 50 or so defense, maybe even more, like 60 something defense. But they are low numbers. That is their biggest drawback. These guys can be swamped, especially by other cavalry. Charges generally from cavalry are AP and add a ton of damage to the front end kind of impact. So the Temple Inquisitors can be beaten just by being cycle charged and surrounded and things like that by more numerous units. Moving on to the third and final attacking army, we have the forces of Dale being commanded by King Strategist. He's got 3 units of Dalian marksmen who are really, really good. From what I understand from talking to the developers, the intent behind this unit is to use up your ammunition as quickly as possible and then commit them into melee, because they've got like 36 defense and they've got axes, which makes them AP. So these guys, really strong, very good as a supporting infantry, especially after they've used their ammunition. So yeah, definitely a worthy pick. They're a little bit, I think, on the expensive side, though. Also got a unit of Dale Dragon Slayers with their canoe paddle swords. Honestly, I was not a fan of the way the swords looked originally, but they've kind of grown on me since, and the rest of the unit just looks beautiful. Sin of the Dark Cloud did a great job in putting these guys together. But in terms of their combat capabilities, the Dale Dragon Slayers are basically much more mobile ballistas. That's yeah, they're basically more mobile ballistas in a lot of ways, because I don't think they have fire ammunition. They can't fire unless they can see a unit, so they can't fire over friendly formations like this. So with these Dalian marksmen in front of them, these guys will not be able to hit anything. So you have to bring them out of formation and expose them to counterplay, like cavalry charges and volley fire and things like that, like massed volley fire. So there's a trade-off to them, but they're great for slaying monstrous units like trolls or Balrogs, for example. And behind, he's got his Elite Corps, 2 units of Dale's Swordmasters, who got a nice buff in .9. These guys are now finally viable again. Got a great charge bonus, multiple HP, decent defense, and of course a lot of damage as well. They are not AP though, so don't expect them to carve through heavy infantry. Oh, here we got a couple units of dismounted Earls. Really the best of the best that Dale has to offer in terms of a mainline infantry unit. They've got multiple HP, high armor values as you would expect from a unit as well armored as the Earls. And yeah, just generally an all-around reliable unit that has a lot of staying power. They don't have AP either though, so bear that in mind. Dale also has a little bit of cavalry. He's got 1 unit of Earls right here and 2 units of hidden Dalian cavalry, which we'll see at various points throughout the game. But I think that does it for the attackers. Let's go ahead and let's see what Guro-Chan has brought today. I know Kuro is one of the developers of the mod, and so he knows very well how to play Eriador. In fact, I think he was behind a lot of the design philosophy when it comes to Eriador. I think they're kind of like his baby. So yeah, he was definitely very happy to play Eriador in this battle. But he's got 3 units of Cardolan Footmen, who are a reliable pike unit. They don't have a lot of armor, especially compared to some of the other pike units, like the Arnor Gate Guards or the Imladris Guard, I think is what they're called with the pikes. But they're still very good. They don't cost a whole lot to bring. I think they're only 500 or so. So you can bring a lot of them on quite a tight budget. He's also got a unit of Fortune Captains. These guys are just so good in this battle. They do so much work, and yeah, they're a really important centerpiece to the Eriador army. They've got 3 HP, and they inspire units around them to greater feats of courage. So just their mere presence will keep your Eriador units, which are generally mid-tier or militia quality. It's sometimes a little bit higher in terms of defense and attack stats and things like that. This will help them stick around for a lot longer. Ooh, bit of a stutter there. That's my bad. He's also got a couple units of Green White Guards. I don't know if these guys are AP anymore, but if they are, then they are extremely efficient for what it costs to bring them. I think they're like 400, maybe 450, less than that even. But they make fantastic support troops to back up, say, a unit of Cardolan Footmen. Really nice 1-2 punch there. The Cardolan Footmen kind of keep things stable and keep these guys safe, allowing them to get the AP bonus going. He's also got a couple units of Forchel Gatekeepers. These guys, even when Eriador was much worse back in like 0.85 and things like that, these Forchel Gatekeepers were still the saving grace of the army. You can build an army around getting these guys going for you and slaughtering enemy troops. Although, bear in mind that they do run out of ammunition quite quickly, but after they do, they're also quite capable halberdmen with AP halberds as well. So these guys, just all around, a really nice unit to have. Crow's also brought a couple units of Bandit Javelins, who are not a very surprising unit, but I'm surprised no one's actually made them before. But they are new, I think, unique to Reforged in the 0.9 patch cycle. And of course, they're a javelin unit. They throw javelins. Although the javelins honestly look like just gigantic toothpicks to me, so I don't know how they expect those to kill anybody. But still, they've got like 14 or 15 AP missile damage, so it's not all that bad. He's also got a couple units of Forchel Heavy Swords, who I think are new. I don't know if they've been seen in other submods, but they're definitely new to Reforged. They're not bad. They're not amazing, but as you would expect from Eriador, they're kind of like a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. They're not awful. That's the best I can say for them. He's also got a couple units of mounted battle-ready Dunedain, who I think these guys got an extra HP in the new patches, which makes them very, very good. They're definitely on par with Serpent Guard in terms of, I think, how useful they are. They're very fast, and it's easy to get their charge bonus going, so that's definitely what you want to use them for. Just use them as shot cav, keep them going, use them for cycle charges, and they'll definitely pay for themselves very quickly. He's also got, I think he's got a unit of, yes, here they are, Dunedain Bodyguards, which is where his general is going to be hanging out. You can see him right there, the Eriador general. Doesn't look like much, but yeah, still looks pretty cool. But I think that basically does it for Kuro's army, except for the obvious trebuchet that's sitting in the middle of everything that I somehow managed to miss. Yeah, the trebuchet, why wouldn't you take a trebuchet on a map like this? It's well defended, except from missiles, and you can basically just wheel it around and shoot at anybody who you decide to at pretty much any point throughout the game. So definitely a good idea to bring that. And yeah, that's definitely it for the Eriador army. So let's go ahead and let's get into the battle, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So the battle kicks off quite naturally, with Archangel making the most of his rush composition. He's just surging forward, and I think he's hoping to catch Kuro a little bit off guard. But Kuro is not one to be taken for a ride quite so easily. He's got both of his mounted battle-ready Dunedain companies out here, alongside his general's bodyguard, which he's using to swing around wide, around Archangel's left flank. At the same time, you can see he's micromanaging his forces quite efficiently. Oh man, Dale just took a trebuchet rather, volley to the face. I think that claimed the lives of quite a number of his earls right there, which is very unfortunate. Let's see. My forces are moving up. I deployed a little bit farther back because I wasn't too sure what to expect from this. So I've got my forces a little bit farther back than they should be, I think, to support Archangel effectively. And my mistake there is really starting to cost him. You can see the Moron on Uruks taking a big charge to the front from the Dunedain bodyguard. At the same time, Kuro is moving his cavalry shifting over onto that left flank in preparation for picking apart this very small, isolated band of orcs. I say small, but in terms of killing power, it's not very big. Well, it's just a couple units here of the Moranon orcs. Elsewhere, Archangel getting things underway by sending his troops into various breaches. But let's take a look at this charge here. Big hit from the battle-ready Dunedain going into the rear of those Moranon Uruks while they try and chase the Dunedain bodyguard down. So now there's these 2 units of mounted battle-ready Dunedain in behind the Moranon Mordor Uruks. Kuro is in a great spot to capitalize on this and to wipe out this commitment of 2 units of Mordor Moranon Uruks. I told you, I'm never going to get it right. Another big charge going into the back of them, but let's see what's going on elsewhere. We're going to slow things down because there's a lot that happens really, really quickly in this battle. So elsewhere, this is a really nice combination, and it really shows that Kuro knows what he's doing when it comes to Eriador. He's got the Greenway Guards mixed in there with his Cardolan Guard, or his Cardolan Footmen, rather. And they are doing work against the Moranon Heavy Maulers. These guys are actually quite upgraded. Archangel, I think, had the money to upgrade them quite significantly, and they are just getting beaten down by these much cheaper units. I mean, these guys together maybe represent about 1,000 florins or something like that, whereas the amount of maulers pouring in here is easily into the 2,000 mark range. Over here, it looks like Kuro has pulled off one of his units of mounted battle-ready Dunedain. This is a nice plan. He's going to use his mobility and the lack of cavalry that Archangel can bring to bear to great effect against him. You can see that these Moranon heavy maulers, heavy maulers are just getting flattened by that mounted battle-ready Dunedain regiment. That's where Archangel is trying to respond, trying to wipe out one of these units with his Temple Inquisitors, but Kuro has chosen his fight quite wisely. The Dunedain bodyguard are a good match for the mounted Temple Inquisitors just because of the amount of numbers that they can bring to bear, and also that's increased significantly by the amount of hit points that these units have. So the Dunedain bodyguards outnumber them by nearly 50%, and they've got an extra hit points for every man in that unit. So this is not going to be an easy fight for the Temple Inquisitors by any means. I mean, it says that they're winning and the victory seems certain, but honestly, if the Dunedain bodyguards get out and start cycle charging them, the Temple Inquisitors are going to be in a lot of trouble. Moving on over here, those Moranon Uruks have really taken a beating. There's like maybe half of them left, if that. And now the rest of Kuro Grochan and his cavalry is free to kind of do what they want to Archangel. Although I am coming in now, I see that Archangel is really struggling, so I'm going to move in with a couple units of my cavalry. You can see my Gondor Knights there, my General's Bodyguard, and actually a Commitment of Spearmen. I got the Citadel Guard ready to pounce on that cavalry if they get too close. I'm going to start moving them in there to try and give him a little bit of a hand. But let's pop on over to Dale's side of things. You can see that Dale has moved up at this point. Quite a small commitment. Well, I guess his force isn't very large. This is maybe about a third of it. He's got 2 units of Bardian Marksmen, or the Dalian Marksmen here, alongside some Earls. These Earls, if they come into the back here and get in to the Fortune Heavy Swords and the Archers, they are going to slaughter them. The Earls are well above, at least like a tier 2 above the Fortune Heavy units. So hopefully Dale gets them in there and gets them working as quickly as possible. As for right now, he's got an opportunity. He's got these 2 units of very accurate, very deadly archers. He could be shooting up these Cardolan Footmen, which I think he's doing right now. He's actually shooting the Foreshell Gatekeepers. Excuse me for one moment. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. But yeah, he is shooting the Foreshell Gatekeepers, which is not a bad idea at all. You can see quite a lot of them have actually fallen already. And those stray shots are getting into the backs of the javelins. So he's already doing a decent amount of damage there. And, oh man, speaking of damage, Kuro Grochan really leveraging that trebuchet. Look at the carnage that he is causing to these Moranon Heavy Maulers. They're not even going to be able to push through this one unit of Greenway Guards all by themselves if that trebuchet just keeps hammering them. Elsewhere, you can see that Archangel's had a little bit of success. He's managed to get in here with his Mordor Moranon Uruks, and they are doing quite a number on these Greenway Guards. On their own, the Greenway Guards are really going to struggle against these Moron Uruks. The only reason that it says defeat is certain is because they are actually getting shot in the flank by both javelins, and I think there's some Forge Heavy Archers around here as well. Look at that. Yeah, scything through the Uruks. So Archangel really struggling at this point, and you can see that Dale is beginning to take some casualties as well, but pretty quickly he's going to fall back, and you can see he's already beginning to do so. The dismounted Earls here had an opportunity to get in there and establish a bridgehead for the rest of the Dalish army, but I think Dale believes there's some kind of pact going on between Archangel and I, which I guess he found unacceptable, even though I know that there was a pact between him as well. So he's actually going to start to pull back his forces. Look at this. You can see it right here. Probably he's a little bit nervous as well because of Kuro's cavalry who are all here stacked against those Temple Inquisitors. But Dale is suspecting treachery, so now he's going to fall back to the edge of the map, and we're not going to see too much from him for a little while now. Elsewhere, you can see I moved in with my cavalry. This is the only forces I've committed so far, and I'm getting in there trying to shut down those battle-ready Dunedain and the Dunedain bodyguard. Kuro is actually, this is very clever. He's going to let me get a little bit closer than he would have otherwise, and then he's going to pull out of there at the last moment, try and get me entangled on Archangel's Mounted Temple Inquisitors. Luckily, I managed to get my General's bodyguard out of there in time, and I'm going to have to fall back, actually, with my Gondor Knights, because they're starting to take some fire from the inside of that circle. Kuro's really got things well in hand at this point. You can see the Archangel's offensive is really starting to peter out. A lot of those Mordor Uruks and the Maulers as well are dead, and Kuro is starting to counter-push now. Yeah, look at this beautiful counter-push here. Some Cardolan footmen and the Forge captains being supported over there by the javelins. This is not something that these Moron Uruks are really equipped to deal with. So now Kuro's starting to focus his attention on me a little bit, trying to get some juicy hits into my Gondor infantry. Luckily for me, though, I managed to scoot just out of range, with his shots just impacting like the ground in front of my troops. Very close, but still, no casualties so far. Yeah, I've got my cavalry stationed over here on the wing as well, not wanting to fall victim to the same tactics that happened to Archangel. I don't want to separate my forces. I don't want to get my infantry caught out without cavalry support, especially by these mounted battle-ready Dunedain who can do a lot of damage. These Mounted Temple Inquisitors doing their best to try and hold the Mounted Dunedain in place while the Balrogs charge in, but Kurogurochan's going to get them out of there, and it's going to lead into a nice hammer and anvil strike onto the Moron. I don't even need to say Mordor, they're just Moron heavy maulers. Whatever. He's getting a nice rear charge into the Axemen. Over here you can see those Temple Inquisitors are also out for blood, trying to shut down the hammer and anvil going into his other side where the Mordor... just where these axes are. I don't know why I have this compulsion to call them Moron heavy maulers or whatever. But in any case, there's not enough of those Temple Inquisitors to really make a difference, and actually the Dunedain are going to fall back, reform, and countercharge those Temple Inquisitors, who are just not really capable of doing this. You can see that they're starting to fall now. Only about 2 of them left, and that's basically all she wrote for Archangel's cavalry. He's still got his Balrogs, though, and that's important. I've now moved most of my troops into place, but I can't really get in there to support Archangel. We are really counting on Dale to be on the other end and to be putting pressure on Kuro so that he can't just concentrate all of his forces on this one side like you see that he's done. If Dale was over there pressing him hard with his Earls, then Kuro would be in a lot more trouble. But right now he's got the situation well in hand, and I'm not sure that Archangel and I are really going to have the ability to take him down on our own. We definitely need that extra help. But yes, at the moment my hands are really tied, as I was saying earlier. I can't get in here. I can't support Archangel's troops because we are not technically allied for the purposes of game mechanics. So if I charge in here to support these Moron Uruks, I'm going to rout them, and then I'm going to find myself face-to-face with Kurogurochan's infantry, which it's just not worth it. So I'm just going to let them kind of peter out, do as much as they can, and then I'm going to move in through other areas, and then I'll move in with my infantry to replace those Uruks once they fall. But I am flanking around here with some Citadel Guard, some Gondor infantry, and my archers. Mostly this is because I'm a little bit afraid of any cavalry or any hidden units that he may have, so I want to be prepared in that sort of eventuality. But speaking of cavalry, Kuro's starting to run out of them at this point. I mean, I'm not sure where my cav is at this point. They're way out of position, out there in my back lines. I had an opportunity there to kind of catch Kuro's cavalry and shut them down, but unfortunately I wasn't able to take advantage of it. But yeah, my cavalry over there on my right wing. Meanwhile, the rest of my forces getting into position on my left. You can see some missile fire coming in from Kuro. He's really kind of circled the wagons here. He's brought everything back into the center to try and make a last stand. Now that I'm here, I can do a lot of damage to these Greenway Guards and to these Fortune Heavy Swords. They're already quite weakened from having to fight for an extended period against Archangel's Mordor army. So now I have an opportunity here to really make a breakthrough, but it's going to be hard without the forces of Dale. And you can see those arrows already starting to take a toll. Like almost 40 of my guys have already died just trying to get around this wall and through the choke point. Oh, goodness. My poor veterans of Osgiliath taking a catapult or a trebuchet shot to the face. But I've got them in position. I'm going to begin to pepper down some of Kuro's defenses. A lot of these lightly armored units, like these Cardinal Footmen, for example, are really, really good targets for my missile units. So I'm trying to weaken them a little bit so that I can push through with the troops that I'm bringing through over on this end. Kuro Grochan is going to counter push, actually. You can see these Fortune captains already in a good position to move out and support the Fortune Heavy Archers once I move in and engage them with my Citadel Guard, which is what I'm in the process of doing. So I'm going to try and tie up these archers. Kuro Grochan is going to fall them back and then move in immediately with his Fortune captains, who are more than a match for the Citadel Guard. It's a really good matchup. They'll actually win that quite easily. Elsewhere, I've brought my Gondor infantry and my Lasarnak axemen into the breach. These Greenway Guards are really going to struggle against them. This is what I wanted. This is kind of the combination that I wanted to get going for my army. The Gondor infantry plus those Lasarnak nobles can do a lot of damage. Kuro Grochan trying to move in and cover this choke point with some Cardinal Footmen, but I am actually peppering them down with my archers at the same time, trying to lend a little bit of support to my Gondorian infantry as they move into this death trap, essentially. Oh man, look at this. That trebuchet is just it's in such a good position, and it's just doing so much damage. It's probably going to finish this game with like 300, 400 kills, just because of the positioning and the firing arcs that it has in this little bandit encirclement. And so over here, the Cardinal Footmen, they are pushing hard against my Gondor infantry, and that's not going to be an easy fight for them. But my plan is to beat down these Greenway Guards. You can already see me making a lot of headway against them, but it's to beat them down and then just shift my forces in around the flank, surround the Cardinal Footmen, and try and beat them that way. Because pikes from the front, in a straight, like, just beating our heads against each other, the pikes are going to do just a disproportionate amount of damage to the amount of men that they have left. So I want to avoid that if at all possible, because I know I'm going to need my numbers. Elsewhere, these bandit javelins, where they were trying to outflank my Citadel Guard, actually successfully did so, are now being pinned in place by a unit of Gondor infantry that I brought up to counteract that. There's only a few Cardinal Footmen here. These Gondor infantry, once they're done with them, and once we sweep away the Fortune captains, we'll be able to move in and push through these two choke points, because this is gonna punch a large hole in Kuro's defenses. Oh man, my poor Lasarnak nobles over here are really suffering quite badly. You can see those missile units on the inside focusing on them. Kuro knows that these guys are very vulnerable to missiles, and he is definitely taking advantage of that fact. Look at the numbers drop. That trebuchet in the center there is really quite the problem for my army right now. What I had intended to do is to bring the Lasarnak nobles into the rear of these Cardinal Footmen, who are just kind of facing the other direction, and then get in there and try and tie up some of the missiles. But I couldn't get them to go through this gate, so I have no choice now but to try and fall them back and preserve their numbers for as long as possible. Over here, we've made good headway. My Citadel Guards, my Gondor Citadel Guardsmen are pushing quite hard against these Fortune Heavy Swords. I've actually brought in my General's Bodyguard as support. Over on this end, I'm trying to do the same thing, get into to the rear of Kuro's forces and try and tie some of them up. These Fortune Gatekeepers, for example, not going to have a good time against my Gondor Knights, and we are going to stop them from firing for a little while, which is kind of what we need to do. We need to tie up as much of Kuro's forces as possible, but there is that nagging concern in the back of my mind, so let's go ahead and let's slow it down just a little bit so we don't miss too much. There is still a nearly full-strength Dale sitting over here on this hilltop, and we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do with them, because that's a lot of missiles, that's a lot of heavy infantry. And remember, this isn't even all of them. He's still got the Blade Masters, he's still got cavalry as well. He's practically untouched after all of this. So I can tell you that we were all in voice, and we were very, very unhappy with Dale. We felt that we were betrayed. He thought he was being betrayed by not being told about this previous agreement between Mordor and I, etc., etc. So there's definitely some politics at work, but which I'll get to in a second. Just, oh my goodness. That is devastating. I cannot take casualties like that and win this battle against Kuro. Kuro is definitely in a position right now to, maybe I can beat him, but I'm definitely going to wipe myself out in the doing so. And I think Kuro knows that as well. So we can continue to beat each other up a little bit, or we can start to discuss other possibilities, especially given that Dale is sitting over there. Oh, damn. Right into my Citadel Guard, into my infantry, into my axemen. Everything dying with that shot. My poor Gondorian is just not able to kill these guys fast enough. But anyway, you can see that we're actually beginning to pull some of our troops out here. Partially that's because of the presence of the Dalian cavalry. I'm actually overextending my knights here a little bit, which is going to cost me a charge in the flank by the Dalian cav. It's not going to do too much damage. They're only going to get, I think, a couple of my knights, but ultimately it's going to be a big problem. Yeah, look at this. This is, I should not be doing this, but I am going to charge like headlong into those dismounted earls. I don't know if I'm going to kill any of them. No, unfortunately, so that ends up just being a waste of life. And I see the kind of trouble that I'm in here and what exactly is going to happen to my knights if I don't get them out of there. So I'm going to fall them back as quickly as possible, get them away from those earls, get them away from that Dalian cavalry, and actually I'm going to turn around a little bit and try and punish the Dalian cav for missing their charge, maybe hack down a few of them, and then get them out of there as soon as I see those Dalian earls bringing up the rear. Yeah, you can see we did quite a lot of damage to them, so definitely was worth it to turn around and try and beat down some of those light cav. But at this point, yes, Kuro and Archangel and myself are all discussing alternate possibilities. So if you can see, our infantry are actually starting to pull away from each other. We've decided that Dale is now public enemy #1. He's been kind of sitting over there like a big festering bull toad on that hill. We want to do something about it. We don't want Dale to come out of this on top. Actually, here, this is an amusing little aside. Kuro forgot that he had his Fortune Gatekeepers on auto-fire, so they're actually going to take a big bite out of my general's bodyguard, and yeah, it was very unfortunate. I was not pleased. But in any case, so Dale is now going to be our #1 target. We want to take down Dale as quickly as possible, so we can see that we're kind of massing our forces. Archangel is going to take the right flank, and he's going to move up with everything that remains of him, everything that remains of his army, rather. Most of his elite corps is still intact, aside from his inquisitors and things like that. I've also brought up some cavalry to try and defend him against the predations of the Dalian earls and things like that, which I believe are over on that right flank. Yes, indeed they are. You can see them moving into the forest to try and hide themselves. And it should be mentioned that there is actually still a hidden unit here of these Dalian cav. We didn't know this. None of us saw it. We were all very busy, killing each other. But King Sir does still definitely have an ace in the hole. Elsewhere, you can see Kuro Grochan actually taking the left flank with everything that remains of his bandit army. We really kind of wiped each other out in a lot of ways, but I took way too many casualties, especially from that trebuchet. Look at this. This should not have happened. I should have been a lot more concerned about taking down that trebuchet as quickly as possible. Definitely could have used my arrow ammunition to do that in the early game, but unfortunately I did not. I definitely paid the price for it. So my battered army now sallying out. I'm going to be taking the center. Got my Gondor infantry there, some Citadel Guard, and things like that. I've also got some more troops that I'm going to use on the far left flank, a little bit farther removed from Kuro's forces. You can see got my veterans of Osgiliath, a few Gondor infantrymen left, some very healthy Gondor infantry over here, and some more veterans of Osgiliath. These guys are going to be the most important part of my army. They're really the glue that keeps everything else together, because the Lasarnak nobles are in pretty bad shape. Most of my Gondor infantry got hacked apart. It's really going to be down to the veterans of Osgiliath to give me a strong, durable, reliable infantry force. Let's see what we got over here. Got some Citadel Guard left. Yeah, I got a few Citadel Guard. Something to ward off some of the Dalian cavalry, but there's not enough there. And I really should have them with my spearmen. That's probably, or with my my horsemen. That's probably the best plan. But instead, I've kind of got my cavalry just off running around on its own. Try to keep them away from those Balrogs if at all possible. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit here. Yeah, you can see Dale getting ready, preparing himself to meet this triple alliance that's been arrayed against him quite hastily. Yeah, he's still got those Blade Masters. I think they're hiding over in the woods somewhere. He's probably planning on using them as an ambush or something once we commit our forces, which is a good strategy, to be perfectly honest. But Dale getting a little bit impatient, I think. I think he's trying to move forward and disrupt the archer fire of Kuro Goro-chan, which is fair enough. These Fortell Gatekeepers are really strong, and by the time his archers manage to kill them, they can potentially do a lot of damage to his front line, his Earls in particular. And his Earls are really not having a good time. Actually, they took a big charge to the front from what remained of the mounted battle-ready Dunedain, but they're just going to power right through. Look at this. This is the power of this heavy infantry unit. They're just weathering the arrow storm, getting right into Kuro Goro's skirmish line, and yeah, definitely causing a nuisance of themselves. Kuro's going to move in from the rear with a very depleted unit of Cartelen footmen. but I don't know if that's going to be enough. The pegmen are really strong. If these earls are otherwise occupied, then maybe they can do a lot of damage to them. But I don't know. It looks like Kurogrochan, to my eye, is really in trouble here. Yeah, the rest of our forces need to move up quickly. You can see I've got my Wardens of Minas Ithil, which really the last skirmish unit that I have that has that ammunition in my army right now. I'm using them to try and soften up these dismounted earls, because I'm definitely afraid of them. I know what they can do to my Gondor infantry from the front, so I want to, yeah, I definitely want to try and weaken them as much as possible, make my job a little bit easier. And behind, though, look at the mass ranks of these Dalian marksmen. This is the biggest problem. With concentrated fire, King Strategist should be able to annihilate us, but it looks to me like he's spreading out his missile fire against a number of different units. I think he's simultaneously firing at some of Kuro's skirmishers over there, and at the same time trying to take down my Wardens of Minas Ithil. I've actually fallen back a little bit to try and preserve their numbers, but it's still they're still getting shot, and I'm actually just moving them forward because I need them to be able to screen my army, because I don't want to get the rest of my infantry shot up, especially not my Lasarnak nobles. I've got one unit there that's down to next to nothing, but I've also got a heavy unit, or a healthy unit here in my second line of infantry. So I don't want to lose these guys to arrow fire, so I definitely want to try and keep those bowmen occupied, if at all possible. Second unit of Earls moving in to try and save what remains of the other unit, which is down now to a 51. So they really got butchered by those Cardolan footmen. These Cardolan footmen down to a mere 13. They're not going to be too long for this world, but they are giving me the opportunity I need to charge in and disrupt the Dalian marksmen, which I'm quite nicely poised to do. Dale is going to try and prevent this from happening by pulling out his 2 units of Earls, but at the same time, he's got another problem. The rest of my forces have arrived on scene, and my Gondor infantry is just surging forward. My 2 units, reasonably healthy units of Gondor infantry, moving forward, backed up by my veterans of Osgiliath. So Dale is really in a lot of trouble right now. I've managed to get into the front line of Dalian marksmen. The first wave of Gondor infantry is not going to be too effective, but backed up by his Lasarnak nobles and a little bit of help from Archangel in the back there with his Uruk archers, we are going to be able to take this fight. My Citadel Guard, actually a fairly healthy unit of Citadel Guard, backing up what remains of my Lasarnak nobles, getting into the rest of those Dalian marksmen who are just being pummeled with fire arrows from Archangel's Uruk archers. So things not going so great for Dale at the moment. You can see the second wave of my veterans of Osgiliath moving in alongside some more Citadel Guard. Yeah, I'm just trying to get in there, wrap around this flank, take on these Earls, and maybe try and get into the Dalian marksmen. But King Strategist is going to wheel his dismounted Earls around, trying to prevent that disruption from happening. But at the moment, if you look at this, the Dalian forces are quite badly encircled. There's... Oh! Hold on, we'll just slow it down a little bit here. There's something else going on. But there's my forces here. There's Kurogrochan's forces, which he used to soften them up earlier. And of course, there's Archangel's troops still over there on the right. But this is a bit of a big problem. My cavalry has now been swept off the field. They got themselves a little bit embroiled in a fight with the Dalian Earls. The idea was that we wear them down with my cavalry and then move in with the lesser Balrogs, which honestly I think was not the best plan. I think maybe it would have been smarter to let Mordor just kind of do their own thing on the flank, and then use my cavalry to come in and hammer an anvil or disrupt the Dalian marksmen. So that was definitely a mistake on my part, and it's really going to cost me. I just lost my full health unit of Gondor Knights. Still, the Balrogs did manage to get in there, and you can see them doing a lot of work. And one of the important parts about units like the Balrogs is that in certain ways they are the rock to cavalry's paper. And there goes my general, so I'm now generalist. But if cavalry gets a charge off on Balrogs or trolls and things like that, then the Balrogs and trolls will die very, very quickly. But if you can get trolls and Balrogs into the cavalry, then you can just chase them around. A lot of the heavy cavalry especially is very vulnerable to this. The trolls and Balrogs are very swift, much faster than the cavalry themselves actually. So they can just run around and just cause a lot of havoc, prevent these guys from forming up and getting charges, and just really whittle them down through attrition just ever so often, getting into the unit and things like that. Especially if your opponent isn't on top of their micro, that kind of strategy can really be effective. Anyway, elsewhere, you can see that the Dalian marksmen are actually managing to beat back my Citadel Guard, and they've already slaughtered my Lasarnak nobles. Over on the main line, though, where I've got more kind of numbers, more presence of my Gondorian warriors, that I'm able to do a hell of a lot better. The Dalian marksmen are just about to be surrounded, definitely in danger of it. Over here, the Earls getting beat down quite handily. Although over here it says that victory is almost certain for them, but honestly don't believe it. The Osgiliath veterans are going to do work against them, especially if I can get... Actually, I had to pull a unit of veterans off Osgiliath out, which is maybe why they're struggling a little bit. But if I commit these veterans here back into melee, the double team is really going to do a number on the Earls. The problem for me, however, is that you can see King Strategist's Dalian cavalry in the back that are menacing to hammer and anvil my very important troops. I don't want to lose my veterans off Osgiliath like that. I definitely don't. So I've pulled off my spearmen, and I've actually pulled out that unit to potentially guard against any cavalry attacks from the rear. Now, my plan here was to chase the Dalian Cav, because I could see them not moving, so I was thinking maybe King Strategist's attention was elsewhere and I'd be able to catch him. But instead, I see that I'm losing this infantry fight, so I'm going to move forward with my veterans of Osgiliath, get them back in there, and try and hastily form up a spear wall with my Citadel Guard, but they are going to take a big charge to the front by the Dalian Cav, which is going to be devastating. Look at that. A lot of my poor Citadel Guard just got run down by a much cheaper cavalry unit, which is very unfortunate. Still, they paid a little bit in the exchange, and my unit is not completely wiped out, so I have an opportunity here to still be a menace to King Strategist. See, those Dalian Cav now have other things on their mind, going after those poor bandit javelins who are just going to take a huge rear charge and nearly get wiped out. Like, that's a lot of dead jabbies. So King Strategist is kind of running all over, ping-ponging back and forth with his Dalian Cav to try and inflict the maximum amount of casualties. And I can see him wheeling back around, going for a hammer and anvil, so I'm going to move my Citadel Guard into the fray, and King Strategist, I think, is going to, instead of skirting right by them, he's actually going to charge the Citadel Spears, which is not going to go well for his cavalry at all. So that's a little bit of a mistake there. That's going to cost him about 7 or so cavalrymen. Over here, the Balrogs have now come into the rear of the Earls, which is a risky maneuver on the part of Archangel, but I think it's one that's well worth it. It is going to bring him face-to-face with my Osgiliath veterans, which means that his Balrogs might take a little bit of damage. One or two of them may even die, but it is going to free up my troops on the flank here, and Archangel's going to pull them out nearly immediately, so he's going to minimize the casualties. And now the rest of my Osgiliath veterans are free to roll up this line, and you can see that there's just so many dead Dalian marksmen all along this front. And now both of the Earl companies are in full retreat. Oh, brutal. Although unfortunately for Archangel, his general just went down in combat. I believe it was inside of the Temple Guard here. With these Dalian Dragon Slayers. So it's the Mordor versus Dale General fighting against each other, and it looks like the Dale General is slowly but surely getting the better of the Temple Guard. Thanks, I think, largely to these Earls. I think there was a cavalry charge in there. Yeah, you can see one of the dead Earls right there, getting a nice rear charge into the Temple Guard, which is it's just going to shift the balance of favor, obviously in favor of the Dragon Slayers. But the presence of those Balrogs, I think, is going to be enough to scare them away. So once Archangel is done in there, he's going to pull his Balrogs out and do exactly what I spoke about earlier. Just sick them on those Earls, let them chase them forever, and just really prevent this heavy cavalry unit from being used to its maximum effectiveness. Archangel's going to pull out with his Mordor Uruks and try and get into these Dalian marksmen. I don't know why I keep calling them Bardian marksmen. But if these Uruks are not going to win that fight, not by a long shot, but they will deal a decent amount of damage, and they'll disrupt these guys long enough for Archangel to chase down that cavalry and to ensure the safety as well of his Balrogs, because they're just constantly shooting at those poor Balrogs. You see King Strategist trying to get his Dalian marksmen out of there. I think they're going to try and run away, or maybe they're going to countercharge. Ah, yes, very aggressive. I like it. Those Uruk archers, they were wavering. Now they're shaken. I don't know. I think maybe King Strategist was expecting to rout them very, very quickly. But he's about to be in a lot of trouble. Most of his Dalian marksmen on the other end have been beaten down by my veterans of Osgiliath and what remains of my army. I've lost a lot of Gondor infantry at this point, and some Losarnak nobles as well. I don't know if I have too many of them left, actually. Yeah, my Losarnak nobles down to next to nothing. About 80 of them died beating down the Dalian marksmen. But now he has no infantry force. We killed the Earls, we've killed most of the Dalian marksmen, the rest of them are being swiftly dealt with and will be shortly surrounded. So the biggest danger from Dale at this point is his cavalry, and of course the two hidden units that we forgot about entirely. So I think they're actually hanging out over in here somewhere. So there is still 2 of the Dalian Blade Masters, which is going to be a big ace in the hole for King Strategist. Let's go ahead and let's speed that up a little bit. You can see, yes, Kuro has now revealed one of his hidden units, the Black Wolds. These guys are like, I think I mentioned them earlier, but I don't really know too much about them because I don't play a lot of Eriador, and nobody really plays Eriador all that much. But I know they have multiple HP. They're, of course, AP with those gigantic axes, and they're quite lightly armored. They do tend to fall apart in the face of elite infantry and things like that. Even other just regular infantry can do a lot of damage to them. So from what I can tell, they make good support troops. But yes, in any case, moving on back to the fight against Dale. We've finally managed to slaughter most of those Dalian marksmen. Elsewhere, those Balrogs doing a ton of work against the Dalians. Those Uruk archers finally routing, but look at this. They held them down long enough to inflict some light casualties on them and to stop them from shooting at the Balrogs as they were chasing down the Earls, which they are still doing. Look at this. This is a nice little trap here to get Dale to fall into. He was using his Earls to try and support what remains of his bodyguard, which is down to next to nothing. The Temple Guard have really done a wonderful job at beating down these elite Dalian marksmen. But now Archangel is going to be able to bring in those Balrogs from the rear, pin the Earls against the Temple Guard, and deal heavy casualties to them. So Dale's going to try and get out of there as quickly as possible, but now I've beaten down all of his remaining marksmen. So I'm going to turn around with my veterans of Osgiliath, countercharge those Dalian Earls, try and surround them and kill as many of them as possible. Look at that. Those casualties and the presence of so many enemy troops is actually going to be enough to rout those Earls off the field. So now we have finally dealt with that Dalian heavy cavalry company. And really, most of Dale in general, I think, has been defeated at this point. Trying to, yes, I think this is them. Yes, there they are. So here they are, the 2 units of Dale Swordmasters, still kicking, still full health, hasn't been committed. They're both fresh. This is a problem. We realized this, I think, a little bit too late. We had forgotten about the Dalian Swordmasters entirely, and now they're suddenly charging out of the woods. And our armies are very depleted and very tired as well. So we're definitely in trouble. So I'm trying to get my remaining forces out of there. My veterans of Osgiliath still reasonably healthy, 60 and 67 in the other unit. And I'm just trying to pull them out of there and get them a little bit of fatigue and make some distance between myself and those 2 elite Swordmaster regiments. Elsewhere, Archangel really not down to a whole lot. He's got some Temple Guard, and he's got a few Balrogs. I think a few of them have actually died to the Dalian marksmen, believe it or not. Yeah, you can see actually 3 of them, 3 dead Balrogs right there. Yeah, so the Balrogs have been really instrumental. They're an excellent terror weapon and very strong in melee. They're way better than Olokai, but they're very expensive. So a lot of Archangel's budget it was invested into those Balrogs, which maybe an extra unit of cavalry would have served him a little bit better. But in any case, I digress. These Dalian marksmen now face to face with the Temple Guard. Apparently, the Temple Guard are losing. I don't know how much I believe in that. Yeah, wow, those Dalian marksmen. Look at them go. Archangel apparently realizes this and is going to fall back with his Balrogs for one final massive rear charge into these Dalian marksmen. Let's watch. I'm sure this will be beautiful. Imagine that charging at you. That is terrifying. Boom. And that charge is going to scythe through the ranks of the Dalian marksmen and nearly send them into a rout if it doesn't rout them completely. Meanwhile, I've moved away the rest of my Gondorians, trying to get a little bit of fatigue back. Both of my veterans of Osgiliath now winded. The rest of my army only very tired. Hey, I'll take it. It's not bad. Dale, I think, has kind of stopped in the forest with his Blade Masters, so we know that they're there. He announced the presence of them to us, but yeah, we don't quite know where they are at this point. Elsewhere, Kuro is falling now back into his banded fortress. He's like been going in and out of this thing 3 or 4 times, and keeps getting pushed out, but he'll always regroup and come back. So he's got a decent amount of troops, and he's also got an ace in the hole. Of course, he's got his Black Olds, which I don't know if he knows that we saw them, but I definitely did during the course of this battle, so I'm expecting the Berserkers at least. But he's also got a unit of cavalry, which is hanging around here somewhere. I don't know. They're gray company, so they're AP mounted skirmishers. Very scary. Oh yeah, I guess we forgot about this when we were looking at Dale. Dale was chasing the Black Wolves, trying to get a nice rear charge on them and wipe out the bandits before they could get into the camp, which is a good strategy. But I think he was so busy on the other end with trying to micro his Earls and doing many different things at once, he didn't see his Dalian cav run into these stakes, and like the entire unit got massacred. It was very unfortunate. But yeah, so now that Dalian cavalry unit has been dealt with, and King Strategist is almost completely out of troops except for his Dalian Blade Masters. So at this point, we're kind of thinking that given the defensive position that Kuro was taking, he's kind of played us off against each other a little bit, and now he's in probably the best position to potentially win the game. And also there's the timer to consider. If we wipe each other out and we're not able to destroy Kuro, or if we don't destroy Kuro first before finishing things among the remaining armies, then we're in a lot of trouble. The bandits are going to win this, and they're going to have a lot of extra money to make everybody else's life hell in the RP. So at this point, Dale and Mordor and myself have all concluded an alliance that is targeting Kuro's army, or remains of them. There's not very many of them left, but really it's the Forest Shell captains that you want to be worried about. 56 of them at this late point in the battle with their 3 HP and huge armor and defense values. That is something to be feared. So actually, we're going to fast forward just a little bit here while the rest of our troops get into position, and I'll see you guys in just a moment. So we've all rested up our troops as best as we can, gotten into position, and you can see all 3 of us moving in on Kuro at the same time. Got my veterans of Osgiliath leading the way, along with what remains of my Gondor infantry. There's a few, I think, axemen here. Yeah, there's not very many of them. About 7 or so of the Lasarnak nobles, and 3 of my wardens of Minas Ithil. Meanwhile, Archangel moving in with his Balrogs, looking to, I think he's trying to screen the forces of King Strategist. I think that's why he's getting so close to him. He doesn't want the Dalian Swordmasters to get shot down by some of the heavy archers and things that are present up here. And yeah, he's just trying to screen his ally a little bit. This is where Kuro pulls out his ace in the hole that we didn't know about. Look at this. The Grey Company coming into the back, targeting the Balrogs. The Balrogs are what we desperately need at this point to win this. So Archangel naturally is going to throw them into battle against the Forest Shell captains. I want to take these guys down as quickly as possible, and at least incur a little bit of friendly fire on the part of Kuro Gurochan's own Grey Company. But you can see those Balrogs are actually getting scythed down quite quickly. Already 3 of them have fallen in battle to the Forest Shell captains. They've only killed a few captains in return. So this is not looking great for us, but it is going to free up the Dalian Swordmasters to move in and flank Kuro's army pretty well uncontested. You can see a nice charge going in to the Dale Swordmasters, and Archangel's going to immediately pull out. So some nice teamwork there. This is Forest Shell Gatekeepers got a nice volley on my veterans of Osgiliath. My veterans are going to be able to make it connect with those gatekeepers, and that is going to be all she wrote for what remains of Kuro Guro's bandit army. I mean, he's still got the Black Wolves, and you can see them being mobilized here, and that's something that's definitely going to have to be dealt with. But the Dalian Swordmasters more than capable of fighting the Black Wolves, and I think Kuro knows that, so he's going to try and look for every advantage that he can to keep those Black Wolves in the fight. But these Dalian Swordmasters are hungry. Look at this. They know exactly what they want, and they're going to go right for those Black Wolves. Over here we can see that the Grey Company is, I'm not even too sure who they're shooting. I think they're trying to get a piece of those Dale Swordmasters, but this is just really not a good position for arrow fire. It's indirect fire, and these guys are already not all that accurate. So yeah, definitely a good use of missiles. I think they've now diverted their attention onto the lesser Balrogs who are trying to catch these guys. We were desperate for Archangel to try and catch these guys because we know that those Balrogs get in there. Even weakened as they are, they will cut a bloody hole through the center of that unit. And Kuro Gurochan knows it too, which is why he is kiting right now, trying to keep his forces as far away from those Balrogs as possible. Those Balrogs really just don't have a chance of catching that fresh Grey Company while they are so exhausted. And the Grey Company is just going to be able to nimbly run circles around these guys, continuously firing at them, and the Balrogs really can't take too much more at this point. Kuro Gurochan now trying to fall back with the rest of his Forest Shell captains. There's a good reason for doing this. 1, he's consolidating his forces, and 2, he's trying to draw our alliance into a battle with one another, which is some clever play right there. Oh, those poor Balrogs now down to a meager 2 Balrogs. At least they're wasting some of the ammunition from the Grey Company, even if they're not going to be able to catch them. Looks like a countercharge here, possibly into the oh man, so close. So close. Those Balrogs almost had a chance, but they're going to wheel away. The Grey Company's going to wheel away just at the last moment and put a final volley into those Balrogs, which is going to see them off for good. And now that leaves Kuro Gurochan's cavalry basically open to do whatever they need to do. I've committed both my units of veterans of Osgiliath here to fighting these Forest Shell captains, and it's looking pretty even at this point. The veterans definitely have the numbers, and they have the HP to stand up to these captains for a long time. It's really going to come down to, I guess who gets luckiest. Both of these units are definitely capable of beating each other, and yeah, I think it's unaided this battle between the Fortune Captains and my Veterans of Osgiliath is really going to come down to luck for the most part. Crow Grochen, though, definitely has the advantage in terms of his in terms of having this cavalry unit on the field. Looks like he was trying to bait Dale into a charge. He was definitely ready for it. He's going to whirl back around for a nice counter charge. Dale's going to counter charge as well. You can see that the Great Company really not able to stand up to those Swordmasters for any length of time. So Kuro really has to keep them going. He lost about 10 or so of them in that charge. And Dale is still poised to beat down these Black Wolves, although he did give his Black Wolves the opportunity to deal a fair amount of damage to those Dalian Swordmasters. Elsewhere, you can see the Great Company looking to do the same thing to my troops. Nice charge there. I tried to counter charge at the last moment and claim some of the lives of the Great Company, which we were successfully able to do. But ultimately, hammer and anvil charges like that are going to wear down my forces enough for these Fortune Captains, still 30 strong, to do what they need to do. Looks like Kuro's coming back for round 2. I think he wants one more hammer and anvil before he leaves and tries to deal with Dale. Actually, no, he's going to scoot right by my Veterans of Osgiliath, try and get out of there as quickly as possible. I actually used the Citadel Guard to try and chase them down. If we look over here, you can see some bandit Javies dead on the ground. My Citadel Guard somehow managed to rout them. Just the 3 of them attacking the bandit unit from the rear managed to rout the Javies, which is a very good thing. So it looks like the 4 shell captains are not going to fall back. I'm going to give them the opportunity to do that. I've got very few of my Veterans of Osgiliath left, and I don't want to waste them in a confrontation with the 4 shell captains, because there's only one person who can win the bandit horde on this. So I don't want to expend all of my forces like that just to give King Strategist time. I want to try and get out of there a little bit and let the Dalian Swordmasters do a little bit more work, because there's still quite a lot of them left. There's like a solid 70 of them left, so almost an entirely full-strength unit remaining on the field. Kuro Grochen is not wanting to go in there at all, and I don't blame him. He doesn't really have the forces, I think, to beat those Dalian Swordmasters in close combat. These 4 shell captains now back to very tired. Not many of these Black Wolves left. Kuro actually pulls his cavalry away a little bit. I think he was trying to menace my poor Veterans of Osgiliath, and maybe he managed to get 1 or 2 of them. But he's going to leave the rest of his forces open to a counter charge here. So Dale is going to take advantage of that. He's going to charge right out with those Dalian Swordmasters, get stuck in with the 4 shell captains and the Black Wolves, and then I think he's actually going to try and retreat a little bit. Oh no, he's going to try and wipe these guys out. He's just going to commit very heavily. And Kuro now realizes the mistake that he's made. You can see him trying to run quickly over to... oh man, that's very unfortunate, getting clipped a little bit there on his own stakes. He's going to try and quickly move over there and leverage the mobility and the damage that his cavalry can do on the charge. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit. Yeah, he's trying to find a way out. He's really kind of closed himself in with a lot of stakes. If he were to try and walk through here, the Dale Swordmasters would simply be able to charge his cavalry and wipe them out very quickly. Which indeed they're already trying to do. Look at that. They're going to see them off right there. I missed an opportunity, unfortunately, to catch those Grey Company. Kuro, just the sheer speed of that Grey Company caught me sleeping a little bit. So my Veterans of Osgiliath, unfortunately, were not able to respond in time in order to catch that Grey Company and to finish them off. 4 shell captains now retreating from that fight. Kuro has now been driven forth from his bandit fortress yet again this battle. And now Dale is going to be right on his heels in hot pursuit, chasing him out with all that remains of his Swordmasters, of which there are quite a lot. There's about 60 or so of them left at this point, which is more than enough to beat Kuro's remaining forces. So Dale is now moving in. I'm trying to do the same, trying to exit through the same door that he went through, with what remains of my Veterans of Osgiliath, who really... We've agreed at this point that whoever wins, as long as the bandits die, the winner is going to cover the costs of the other factions to enter. So we're fully committed to defeating Kuro. There's going to be no more backstabbing from here on out. Nice hammer and anvil charge there into those Dale Swordmasters. That is very unfortunate. Another one, just wasting these poor Dalian Swordmasters. Kuro just seeming to be everywhere at once. Another nice charge there. Gonna see those guys off. I'm kind of just standing by. And this isn't because I'm trying to screw over Dale. I know that if I go in there, all of our troops will be fighting each other, and then it's going to give Kuro the best chance at defeating us, or at least prolonging the game for long enough for Kuro to win just by default. So I'm going to slowly move in my Veterans of Osgiliath. I'm actually going to try and screen the Dalian Swordmasters and give them the opportunity that they need. to fight those Fortune captains. They've done a great job of it so far. The Fortune captain's now down to a meager 9 from the 26 or so that they were at a moment ago. But unfortunately, my exhausted troops, they're trying to make this cordon around Dale's troops, but they're just not fast enough to keep up with the Grey Company. So Kuro is eventually going to outmaneuver me and then charge in there to flatten what remains of these poor sword masters. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward that just a little bit. Watch these Dalian sword masters and Fortune captains just beat each other. Another charge from Kuro. At this point, Dale is basically expended, so I'm going to try and get in there and finish off what remains of Kuro's cavalry and his forces. Dalian sword masters now routing, which leaves the Fortune captains, the only troops left on the field. I know if I can beat these guys. Well, I know Kuro doesn't want me to beat these guys, and he wants to do what he did to Dale. But I'm way ready for it at this point. So I actually get a countercharge here with my veterans of Osgiliath, and these Grey Company are not going to have a good time with it. You can see a lot of them beginning to fall. Definitely the results that I was hoping for. So let's go ahead and let's fast forward here just a little bit. These Fortune captains now down to 3. I've got enough troops left to deal with the captains and actually to keep my troops shielded from hammer and anvil strikes. Kuro Grochan just darting in and out, trying to deal as much damage to those veterans of Osgiliath as he possibly can. But at this point, Gondor's victory is essentially assured. I'm the only one with any troops left remaining on the field. Mordor is gone, Dale is gone. I got lucky enough and chose my fights carefully enough, but I was able to come through as the victor in this and win the 20,000 prize for the person who happened to hire me. Which is good news, because good news for the Gondor player and good news for everyone else. They don't have to deal with superpowered bandits. There's just one final person left, the last Fortune captain, who just got knocked over, just knocked right out by the remaining Gondor forces. So that's it for the battle. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There will definitely be more RP stuff coming your way very shortly. As I believe I mentioned earlier, I am going to do some turn recaps and things like that. So even if you're not interested in participating in the RP and committing to it, then you will still be able to follow along with more or less the highlight reel of the campaign as it progresses. But in any case, I have been Jordan, also known as JMonster. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye!